I am H. Robert Silverstein, MD, for the Preventive Medicine Center and West Hartford Cable Access TV. If you have any questions about this, you can contact me at the office. We have a website, the Preventive Medicine Center. Put in my name, H. Robert Silverstein, MD, in Google, and then you'll search down and you'll see the Preventive Medicine Center, which is www.the PMC, Preventive Medicine Center.org, www.thepmc.org. All right, on to the issues. By the time this plays, the election will be over, and that'll be interesting. Naturally, here in a blue state of Connecticut, I expect that the state will go for Kamala Harris. Just heard from on TV today being October 21st, 2024, that 91% in a New York Times study, 91% of people want a change from what has been. That does not speak well for the Kamala Harris campaign and speaks well for the Trump campaign, but the proverbial we shall see. Now, to the medical issues at hand. I've often talked about how diseases occur, and it's called the cause of the causes. What causes high blood pressure? What causes diabetes? What causes cancer of the colon? What causes high triglycerides? What causes kidney disease? The cause of the causes. And the answer is basically I make the joke and tell the truth. Always blame the patient. Now, I know how that sounds, so just be a little bit flexible and listen to me. There are entire societies that have none of the diseases you and I are familiar with most commonly. They have no high blood pressure, no high cholesterol, no need for open heart surgery, meaning bypass surgery. They have no stroke. They have no diabetes. They have no chronic kidney disease. They have no hypertension. And that's what I've always modeled myself on. What is it that these people do such that they are essentially immune to our quote Western close quote diseases? Well, those Western diseases are now happening in Japan and China, so it's universal diseases to be sure. Now, there are 5 basic activities that are responsible for most diseases. I can tack on a few other things like recently PFAS, perfluoroalkyl substances, which are in our drinking water, those microplastics and their compounds that have infiltrated us and are everywhere in us. They are in our eyes, in our livers, in our ovaries, in our testicles, in our lungs, in our heart, and so on. So there will clearly be a movement to get rid of those things that produce PFAS. That's not one of the 5 basic activities or that cause the 5 basic errors. Here are the 5 basic errors: what we breathe, what we drink, what we eat, what we exercise, and then what we think. Breathe. Breathe has to do with clean air, not smoking of any variety, not e-smoking, not cigarette smoking, not marijuana smoking, and then masking appropriately when working in dusty environments. Breathing. So then number 2 is drinking. We're supposed to drink clean water. Food and water are apparently how we get most of our PFAS, so I guess I don't have to mention them separately. We're supposed to drink clean water and weak herbal tea. Now, the question of coffee always comes up. Clearly, coffee is a stimulant. It took me a little while to figure out what the difference is between coffee and espresso. Espresso is much more finely ground so that the caffeine that's there is more readily available. I am predisposed to irregular heartbeat. If I drink espresso, I will get irregular heartbeat. If I drink 1 or 2 cups of coffee in a day, I will not get irregular heartbeat. So it has to do with the caffeine availability. And the caffeine availability is than less in coffee than in espresso. Same amount of caffeine, but it has to do with its availability based on the grinding, the fine grind. So breathe, drink water and weak herb tea. I buy organic green tea at Trader Joe's, and we order organic white tea, which from the internet. And I drink 1 cup of coffee, and then I have, using the same grounds, I put in 1 white tea bag, 1 organic white tea bag, 1 organic green tea bag, and have a 2nd cup of coffee tea, and that's it. But we really are supposed to be drinking chamomile tea and clear water and so on. Breathe, drink, eat. What are we supposed to eat? I always talk about the human mouth. The human mouth is primarily vegan vegetarian. All this talk about our being omnivores is simply misleading so that we can eat more fish, chicken, turkey, meat, cheese, and eggs. We live in a vegan body, like it or not. Don't believe it? Develop the diseases. Your choice. I give no orders. I give no command. I give facts. Yeah, I know how I give them. They feel like orders and commands, but I do try to soften that up a little bit. So we're supposed to have organic, ideally, grain, unprocessed, ideally, grains, vegetables, beans, fruit, nuts, and seeds at about the 85% level. I think being nearly vegan is the right idea. A little bit of flexibility. I'm not opposed to virtually anything except 2 things. All cow milk products, skim milk, 1%, 2%, light and lively cottage cheese, yogurt, ice cream, cream, half and half, lactate, 100% against milk products. I believe, and there is information to support what I say, I believe that cow milk products cause cancer of the breast, cancer of the prostate, but also nasal congestion, allergies, predisposition to developing the respiratory syncytial virus, RSV infection, coronavirus infection, common colds, and so on. And what's the mechanism? The mechanism is thickening of the mucus so that it doesn't clear out easily. Just parenthetically, I read a study that I think is very interesting, such that if you're going into a potentially toxic environment, to use over-the-counter Neosporin, which is kind of a thick cream that you can put inside your nose, which is where the virus comes in. And it turns out that the neomycin that is in Neosporin is toxic to the virus. And so that may be a way of, when you are potentially exposed to groups of people where you will be with them for 15 minutes or more consistently, then that may be helpful. In addition, I also recommend the Navage nose spray to clear the nasal sinuses when you've been exposed, after you've been exposed, if you like it. A neti pot will do sort of the same thing, but the Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, is much more scientifically effective, in my best guess. One of the things I say about physicians is all physicians guess, and the best physicians have the best guessing rate. I also am not entirely acceptant of all the studies. You might look up a fellow by the name of John Mandrola, Mandrola. He is a living saint. He's wonderful at the analysis of medical studies. The medical studies may be over your head, but if you read the article and the very end, you get his interpretation. And I think he's just one. I don't agree with him 100%, but almost 100%. The next thing I say sort of disagrees with him. It's not a case of don't confuse me with the facts, but the best clinical insights exceed so-called knowledge by at least one step. In other words, there are people who really can look at things, life, data, and say, this is the real deal and that isn't the real deal. Obviously, I'm trying to put myself in that category, and you have to decide for yourself. So we're back to the 5 basic errors. What are we supposed to breathe, drink, eat? And I didn't really finish that. So what would be an ideal breakfast? If you're not exactly trim, you don't need grains of any variety. You don't need quinoa. You don't need brown rice. You don't need oatmeal. You don't need oat groats. You don't need steel cut oats. You don't need toast. You don't need Ezekiel bread. You don't need Ezekiel bread toasted. You don't need Alvarado bread. Uh, all those breads go to the bread basket just like all the grains. So you don't need all the grains if you're overweight, as most of us are. Something like 80%, I'm not absolutely certain of that number, 80% of Americans are not trim. Actually, I think the number is higher. What is trim? Trim is when you look down at your tummy and you can see where the muscles meet the muscles because of an absence of fat under the skin. I have a mere handful of patients who fit that. I have one that's coming in tomorrow that fits that. He's 5 feet 10 inches, 175 pounds, rides his bike amazingly. He's in fabulous shape. Former medical personnel in East Hartford. And I have a few others. I have an 85-year-old man from Peru who has abdominal clear lines of definition and demarcation. That is the definition of trim, and that is the proper percent body fat. One of the things I read about BMI is a BMI between 22 and 25 has the most longevity. I think that's a generally good screen. I don't know whether a BMI of 22 gets you down to abdominal clear lines of definition and demarcation or not. But once again, if you take a look at the pre-technological societies that I was talking about earlier, they have abdominal clear lines of definition and demarcation. And that's sort of where I drew my information. What do they breathe? What do they drink? What do they eat? What do they exercise? Well, what about their thinking? All right, so breathe, drink, eat, and I've sort of mixed diet with exercise. So breakfast, if you're not trim, could be a small handful of mixed nuts, almonds, pecans, walnuts, 2 Brazil nuts, uh, a small handful, not a large handful. And I'm talking about in one hand. I'm not talking about in 2 hands. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about what would fit in there before it starts falling out. And then a little bit of dried fruit. You have to be careful to brush your teeth after you eat dried food because it is high in sugar. And you could make and then some blueberries. I consider berries as having essentially no calories. By the way, the diet that I recommend is 100% carbohydrate, but it's low calorie carbohydrate for those who are not trim. For those who are trim, they can have the grains. They can have the quinoa in the rice milk or the almond milk instead of just the berries and the small handful of nuts. Uh, so and then lunchtime would be steamed vegetables in a vegetable soup without potatoes. And you might say, well, what are you going to flavor it with? Well, there's common flavoring with marjoram and chopped up garlic, which you can buy already made, uh, celery, carrots, cilantro, dill, and then in the place of salt, you get a dish called a reamer. Everybody knows what it is, but they don't recognize that name. One of those dishes that projects up, and you make orange juice with it. Well, you can make lemon juice plus lime juice, and that perfectly replaces the flavor of salt. But you use it at the table. Don't put it in the cooking. So you make your vegetable soup with all the vegetables except the potato family. And then you put that soup in your plate at the table. Then you pour in the little bit of lemon juice combination, lemon lime juice combination, and you can have as much soup as you want. It's all carbohydrate, but it's low calorie carbohydrate. And then you can steam some broccoli and cauliflower and carrots and onions and use some uh, maybe some cumin or curry, a tiny little bit of cayenne on that. One of the local restaurants here, actually present company out in Tariffville, and oh, I'm forgetting something like Basara, Osara. Uh, Here in West Hartford has roasted whole uh, cauliflower head, and very tasty and nice. Doesn't have to have cheese on it. If you do use cheese at all, I recommend goat cheeses, which you can obtain from Trader Joe's. You can probably get it from lots of places, but the place I see it is at Trader Joe's. But you must use very, very little because that's not one of the recommended foods. Now you may say, no, wait a minute, you recommended no milk product. I do think the goat products are more benign than the cow milk products. So I'm absolutely against cow milk everything. And I sort of support a little bit of goat milk if you want. You don't have to have it. There are other ways to flavor things. And you may say, well, what about drinking goat milk? Or what about goat milk kefir or yogurt or whatever? Look, be careful. This is about being essentially vegan. Plant-based is the big word that's acceptable. You use the word vegan, that's not considered acceptable. So uh, exercising to the point of abdominal clear lines of definition, BMI of 22 to 25, showing the greatest longevity. That approaches trim. I don't think 25 is quite trim, but I'll bet you that somewhere between 20 and 22 is trim. Um, Look it up. You put in percent body fat pictures in Google, and you'll see the ones where you can still see the abdominal clear lines of definition and demarcation. And that is a percent body fat uh, of probably 18 to 22. Uh, okay, fine. Then the last, breathe, drink, eat, exercise, and then the last one is unrealistic expectations. My apologies for the difficulties of life, but that is the reality. There's a song, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. Uh, the fact is, life has difficulties. It's not about whining and crying about them. It's about overcoming them. All obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off the goal. That was given to me by a young lady many, many years ago, and I have it in my office. But by the way, I'm recording in my home. And I see we have about 7 more minutes. And so the the world has come to expect help, assistance in at every obstacle. That is the wrong idea. The idea is the proverbial we shall overcome. We shall overcome does not mean we shall get help to overcome. It means we shall overcome. We will do it ourselves. We have to face the adversities. And I think I'm using too many ands and having too many uhs today. So what is it we have to do? We have to do what I've outlined if you want your freedom. That's what I'm talking about. The human potential movement. And see, I just used and again. If that's what you want, there is a price to freedom. The price to freedom, as Thomas Jefferson said, this is his quote turned around a little bit. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. I always say it that way to patients because I want them to hear the eternal vigilance at the end. How long is eternal? Eternal is forever. Starts now, continues now, goes into the future. It's not like it's difficult. It's like these are the facts of life. And there I did it again. If you want your freedom, you will have to work hard to have it. I never promised you a rose garden. Obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off the goal. Anyhow, I hope that brings you up to date on this. And I did it again. Um, if you voted, and I hope you all do, and I hope everybody gets their happy choice, but each of us will make our decisions whether or not to continue what we have experienced in the last 4 years or seek a change from the last 4 years. I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent, but there are options and they have implications. Inflation, crime. Crime is on the increase in West Hartford, I think. I hear much more about crime now than I used to over the past several years. And I think that's because police are hindered. At the same time, I believe that criminals feel that they can get away with it because of the way the courts are now stacked. So if you have opinions about crime, if you have opinions about the border and the millions of people who've come across, if you want them in your home or you don't want them in your home or your neighborhood, you have a vote. I'm not suggesting you vote one way or another. I'm giving you data and facts to help you make your decision. Well, regardless, that was what the election was all about, and we'll see how it pans out. In the meantime, if you have any questions about this show, you may contact me, H. Robert Silverstein, MD, uh, internist and cardiologist, at the Preventive Medicine Center, offices 1000 Asylum Avenue, Hartford, CT 06105. In case you want to send me email message. And that's pretty much it. So I think we're done for today. Call me if you have questions. And I hope these programs prove of benefit to you. And I thank West Hartford Cable Access TV. I was tardy today, and still they put me on. Good day, and God bless you all. Uh, go for it. Enjoy the day. We're having the most beautiful weather the past few days, and very shortly the leaves will begin to fall. I walked outside today, and it was like it was snowing leaves. That's how many were coming down. All right, that's it. Talk to you all later. Bye, bye, bye.